You all hear me okay? Wonderful. Well, greetings from Atlanta, Georgia, in the United States, where it is 3 o'clock in the morning.
Oh
Um,
no.
but I know I have been up during the day when I've seen others up at this hour. So um, I'm delighted. And it is February 14th. I think it's February 14th there in India as well. And
Mm.
as some of you might know, at least here in the United States, February 14th is Valentine's Day. I don't know, is it also celebrated in other places where you are? Yes, Valentine's Day. Oh, okay, yes, I see the heart. Thank you very much, Smita. And so I have brought a Valentine's Day story. And this story is actually 28 years old because in 1993, I was part of a storytelling group in California. And we were doing a storytelling event, and we were all to tell a story in honor of Valentine's Day. And I didn't have a good story, so I made one up. So this is my original story in honor of Valentine's Day. It's called The Improbable Love of Ethel and Elmer. One day, a lonely young fellow went wandering through the woods, as lonely as a lonely young fellow could be. And as he meandered, he felt himself as limp and lifeless as a liquid laden leaf. And he kept his eyes trained down and his head bowed down, his eyes on the ground, so that he barely espied the blue skies above. And every so often he stopped and he sighed with a whimpering cry. Oh, where, oh, where is my love? His name was Elmer. Now, it just so happens in the very same forest, in the very same day, there was a beautiful creature walking along with a heavy, heavy heart. And with each step, she felt her feet heavier and heavier beneath her. And every so often, she stopped and lifted her head towards the heavens and heaved with a mournful wail. Oh, where, oh, where is my love? Her name was Ethel. Now, it just so happened that Ethel and Elmer appeared at opposite edges of the very same clearing at the very same moment. And the instant they laid eyes upon each other, it was as if their hearts were filled with light. Elmer had never seen anyone like Ethel before. She had such big, dark eyes, as dark and bright as the moon, and a smile that stretched from ear to ear, and lovely ears that were clearly made for listening. And a beautiful, elegant, no, not just elegant, a majestic nose. And she wore a, a gray, silvery coat that was a little bit dusty and frayed at the edges. So he knew she was someone who liked to frolic and play. But what he liked most of all was the sheer weight of her. Oh, this was no thin, frail, speckled creature, but obviously someone of substance. And as he gazed upon her, he thought to himself, what a beautiful creature. And Ethel had never seen anyone like Elmer before. He cut such a striking figure, so lean and trim and dashing as he moved. He moved so smoothly, like a wave. No, not just like a wave, like an entire river wandering. And his skin was so soft and smooth and translucent and shimmering. But what she loved most of all was how grounded he was. This was clearly someone in touch with the earth and with the things that mattered in life. And as she gazed upon him, she thought to herself, what a handsome fellow. And she said, hello. And he said, hello. My name is Ethel. My name is Elmer. What are you doing? Oh, I was just going for a walk. So was I. Shall we go together? Yes, I would like that. And so they fell in side by side. At first, it was a little awkward and tentative, but soon they found a nice, easy, comfortable, natural rhythm. And so they walked, and as they walked, they talked and talked and talked and talked until soon it was as if they talked with one voice. I've found you. I've found you. I've found you, my love. And that's how it all began. That's how the improbable love of Ethel the elephant and Elmer the earthworm first began. Then from that moment on, they spent all of their time together, exploring each other and the forest world they shared. Ethel would take Elmer up on the tip of her trunk and perch him up on her brow, where he could see for yards around in every direction. And she would take him on long jaunts through the jungle. There on her brow, he went places he never would have been able to go on his own. But as much as he loved their journeys through the jungle, even so he cherished his travels across the vast expanse of Ethel's body, from the tip of her trunk to her tiny, tiny tail. And he furrowed and burrowed deep within her wrinkles and folds of her hide. And suffice it to say, wherever he touched her, she tingled. Well, their love continued to grow and grow until a time came when she wanted to take him by the clearing by the edge of the elephant pond to meet her herd. And he wanted her to linger by the patch of earth where the earthworms had their burrows to meet his colony. And that is where the trouble began. For as the great bard once wrote, the course of true love never did run smooth. No, at the elephant pond, the elephants lifted their trunks and trumpeted forth their disapproval. Ethel, he has no tusks. Ethel, how will you survive? You'll eat nothing but dirt for the rest of your life. Ethel, you need someone with a backbone. Meanwhile, at the little patch of earth where the earthworms had their burrows, the earthworms were wriggling and squirming with consternation. Elmer, how will you support her? She'll eat you out of house and home. Elmer, she's so loud. Elmer, if she sets foot in this house, it will be over my dead body. But Ethel and Elmer were not to be deterred. They continued spending all of their time together. Oh, Ethel would put Elmer on the tip of her trunk, and then she would scoop up a mouthful of that frothy pond water and send it out through her trunk, giving him the body surf of his life into the center of the pond. And Elmer would give her wonderful, caring, painstaking manicures and pedicures. And he would take her on journeys into the deeper, denser, thicker parts of the forest, where he helped her learn how to crawl and crouch with caution and care. With Ethel in his life, Elmer began to see the world as a place of endless dimension and possibility, because that's what love will do to you. And with Elmer in her life, Ethel developed a tenderness and a carefulness and a gentleness and an attention to detail that she had never had before, because that's what love will do to you. Well, as their love continued to grow and grow, the day came when it became too great a threat to the natural order of things. At the little patch of earth where the earthworms had their burrows, the earthworm elders assembled and exclaimed, Elmer, you are forbidden to see her ever again. She's not good enough for you. Stick to your own kind. Listen to your colony. Elmer, she's a fat, ugly elephant. And they took Elmer and they led him down passageways and through corridors down to a chamber deep, deep under the ground. And then they put little bits of sand and shards of leaves into the entryway. And then they secreted a fluid that quickly dried to form an airtight seal of parental disapproval. And Elmer was truly grounded. Meanwhile, back at the clearing by the elephant pond, the bull and cow elephants bellowed forth in bellicose tones, Ethel, you are forbidden to see him ever again. Stick to your own kind. Listen to your herd. He's not good enough for you. Ethel, he's a slimy little worm. And they led Ethel to the biggest banyan tree by the edge of the pond. And they got strong, thick liana vines, and they pushed her against the trunks and lashed her against the banyan tree, around and around, in and out, and tighter, until she could not move. And thus, in their separate prisons, bereft of each other, they called out, "Oh, where, oh, where, oh, where is my love?" And Elmer's cries were so sharp and shrill that they pierced up through the ceiling of that hermetically sealed chamber, and they found the air, and they floated through the forest and found Ethel's eager ears. And when she heard his cries, she sobbed, and her sobs shook the banyan tree and sent tremors across the forest floor. And when he felt those tremors, he cried louder. And when she heard those cries, she sobbed with more power, until finally her sobs created tremors across the forest floor. They caused an earthworm-sized earthquake at the little patch of earth where the earthworms had their burrows. And what was in an instant, at one moment, had been an intricate maze of tunnels and passageways and chambers, was in an instant reduced to a plain of rubble and devastation. When Elmer came to, he realized what had happened, and he knew what he had to do. He wriggled and squirmed slowly up until he came to the light of day. And then he began the long, arduous journey across the forest floor, a journey which would have taken all of maybe 3 or 4 minutes perched upon the brow of his beloved. But on his own, it was very different. He crawled and crawled all day, and day became night, and day and night again. And as he crawled, he called, "I'm coming, I'm coming. I'm coming, my love." He finally reached the edge of the clearing where he was unseen by all except for Ethel. And oh, how excruciating were those last few hours that it took him to crawl across the clearing, until finally he was within Trunk's reach, and she scooped him up and brought him up to her face, and she said, "You are here. You are here. You are here, my love." And then she set him down on the liana vines, and he set to work, gnawing and chewing and sawing and grinding with his tiny little mouth muscles, until thread by thread and strand by strand and vine by vine, she could feel herself getting looser, until she was able to break free of her shackles. And then, without a thought, she put him up on her brow, and she leapt, she ran, she flew from that place, never to return. Hours passed before the elephants realized that she was gone. They said, "It's that worm." And so the elephants went running through the forest to the little patch of earth where the earthworms had their burrows. What little order remained of those burrows from the earlier catastrophe was now reduced to absolute horrors. And the earthworms, they wriggled for safety under some low-lying ferns. When the elephants arrived, they said, "Where is our girl?" The earthworms peeked out and said, "Where is our boy?" "Oh, if she's here, we'll find her." And they started routing around and pulling all of the foliage apart. But the earthworm said, "No, he's been gone for days. They must have run off together." And in that moment, the elephants and the earthworms looked at each other, big moon globe eyes and tiny little dot matrix eyes. And it was as if their hearts were filled with light, and they began to think with one mind. And the elephants reached down and picked up, one by one, picked up the earthworms and placed them on their brows. And they fanned out through the forest in search of their lost children. They searched for hours and hours and days without any success, until finally, at the far edge of the forest, where none of them had ever been before, certainly not the earthworms, but not even the elephants, they encountered a rhinoceros with a raven on his shoulder. "Who are you?" "Yes, and what are you doing here?" We are looking for our lost children, Ethel and Elmer. The rhinoceros and the raven looked at each other and then disappeared into the growth and came back out a moment later, followed by a strange parade of pairings. They said, I am Raoul the rhinoceros, and I am Rhonda the raven, and this is the land of improbable love. And then they introduced the others. There was Lucy the llama and Larry the lungfish, and Bert the baboon and Bessie the butterfly, Myra the monkey and Melissa the mosquito, and there, pulling up the rear, Ethel and Elmer. Ethel and Elmer looked at their families and they said, we're sorry that we ran away, but we need to be together. Their families looked at them and realized that, improbable though it might be, this was indeed love. And a strange peace settled over that place. And questions were asked and answers were given and laughter was shared and tears were shed. And on that day in that place, Ethel and Elmer began to do what they had been dreaming of doing from the instant they laid eyes upon each other. They began to live happily ever after. The improbable love of Ethel and Elmer. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Where's the story from?
That is a story I created myself.
Oh,
Yes, 28 years ago, I was part of a storytelling event in San Diego. And I started looking around for Valentine's Day stories and, was looking at fairy tales and this and that. And just decided to make up kind of an offbeat romance. And in my mind, it's a little bit of Shakespeare meets Dr. Seuss.
wonderful.
What a brilliant story, Barry. Really enjoyed it. Immense enjoyment. And, like I've written, I mean, so polished, your storytelling is so polished. But besides that, I love improbable love. I think that was really the best part because it's acceptance. It's acceptance for each and everybody, irrespective. So really enjoyed it. Thank you.
Thank you, Vandana.
Barry, hi.
Hey.
Hi. Uh, uh, can you hear me? Yeah.
Yes, I can.
Yes.
Yeah. Barry, see, there is one girl that is, if I am right, it is the earthworm, right? Earthworm is the boy, right?
Ethel is the girl, and
It's a
Elmer
girl. Okay. Okay.
is the boy.
And the elephant is the boy.
No,
Sorry.
the elephant is the female, and the earthworm is the male.
Yeah, that is the confusion I have. Why I am confused because the voice you gave for the elephant, according to me, it's a male voice, which is a
You know,
girl. And no, let me complete. Let me complete. And the worm is a boy in your story, and it gives a female voice. No, that confusion continued, but no, that apart. But it was wonderful. That is, but the way in which you are saying that modulation, and it was really interesting. I think only you can do it. Really great. And the story that you have written, the dialogue you have imagined, and even in those animal world, the parents are against, right? Love, right? Okay, kindly answer that question. The girl voice and the boy's voice.
well, part of my idea for the story being improbable love is also that kind of disappointing one's expectations, and the voices really come from once I decided I'm going to make a story between an elephant and an earthworm, which of course is rather improbable, and we probably shouldn't go too deep into thinking what their relationship is really like. But once I decided that, and I thought the voice comes not from the gender but from the size. And yes, we tend to think of a male as having a deeper voice and a female as having a higher voice, but I extended those to, I tried to get as deep as I could in my voice and as high as I could in my voice to kind of show the great extreme difference between that tiny little earthworm and that enormous elephant. So I understand that confusion. In a way, that confusion is built into the story. And it's interesting because this might be a cultural distinction that for an English speaker, where names like Ethel and Elmer, they're not common names, but they would be recognized as Ethel is a female name and Elmer is a male name. But obviously for Indian folks or other folks around the world, maybe you're not as familiar with those names. So you might have had to be listening for the pronouns where I said, a young fellow went wandering through the woods, or a beautiful creature, and she said, and he said. So I hope you were able to find your way through that confusion of the voices. And it sounds like you did.
Every
Thank
time I
you.
was confused. Yeah. Thank you for that.
May I make a comment?
Of course. It's your day.
Beautiful. It was beautiful, and for me, it's such an example of simplicity, but how hard it is to get to that simplicity and how much work it means. I mean, really, congratulations, and just bringing back to an adult that we can laugh and we can, be funny, and I'm very thankful. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Valentina.
Barry, see, today is Valentine Day. This Valentina is commenting. No, that is important.
It's
Valentina,
her day.
hello, Valentine.